Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Kate Hamilton Health Podcast. So in today's episode, I chat with Chris Burres. He is a scientist, longevity expert and the author of Live Longer and Better. Your journey to living longer and better has never been more achievable than today. With a background in mechanical engineering and a passion for human potential, Chris is also the co-founder of SES Research Inc., the first company to deliver scientific grade carbon-60, also known as ESS60, to the public. His journey into the world of health and longevity began in the 1980s when he worked alongside Nobel Prize winning scientists at Rice University, contributing to research that uncovered the extraordinary potential of carbon-60. Since then, Chris has made it his mission to explore the boundaries of human vitality, pioneering the development of ESS60, a purified form of carbon-60 that many believe holds the key to extended health span. And this is packaged in an olive oil or an avocado oil product that his company produces. Through a blend of science, innovation, and bold curiosity, Chris invites others to reimagine what's possible when it comes to aging, energy and quality of life. So we're not just talking about living longer, we're talking about living better as well. Whether he's breaking down complex biochemistry or sharing practical tips to live better and live longer, Chris empowers his audience to take charge of their own longevity journey, one choice at a time. So although we do spend a lot of time talking about this ESS60 molecule and what it can do for us as we age, we also talk a lot about practical lifestyle tips that need to be in place also. We talk about everything from longevity to biohacking to the molecule itself to living better. So it's not just about living longer, it's living better. We talk about the importance of healthy fats, what is the secret to the blue zones, inflammation. We also talk about this ESS60 molecule in relation to helping with menopause symptoms. And we talk about cell health and we talk about your lifestyle in general. It is an extremely interesting conversation. As I say in the episode, I am the practical coach who likes to give you practical, actionable tips to achieve your goals. But it's also nice to know a bit of the science. And this is where Chris comes in. I think you're going to find this extremely, extremely valuable. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Kate, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to jump into, what I like to do, like geeky, sciencey stuff, and then kind of sharing that and experiences with your audience.
I'm really excited to chat because I'm very much the practical, what do we do day-to-day lifestyle kind of gal. So being able to kind of talk to scientists and talk the science side of things is really exciting for me because it's not my area of expertise.
We'll jump in. And if at any point, please, if I get too sciencey, too geeky or whatever, just like wave your hands or let me know and I can bring it back some.
I'm so excited to learn a little bit more here. So I suppose, what is your background then? And you are known as if I'm correct, a longevity expert. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your background and what your area of expertise is?
I love the trepidation you put into longevity expert because the reality is I had, 10 years ago, if you had said, hey, Chris, you're going to be a longevity expert, I would have said, I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to get from what my focus is now to getting into the health space and then ultimately the longevity space. But it starts like with this molecule. Now, I'm recording from home today, so this is also a dog toy, but it is representative of the molecule ESS60 that we'll be talking about today. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, just imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms in the shape of a soccer ball. We call it ESS60. This molecule was discovered in 1985 at Rice University here in Houston. That's where we're based, Houston, Texas. And the three scientists who discovered the molecule actually went on to win the Nobel Prize for the discovery of the molecule. So we like to call this, molecules can't win Nobel Prizes. I don't know if you know that, but we say this is Nobel Prize winning technology. The molecule's amazing. The reason they won the Nobel Prize is because this molecule performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And this is where people often get nervous because we're like, Kate, you talk about health. Chris just mentioned inks, batteries, tires, photocells. I did not wake up this morning, look out at my car, and think, I wonder what components of my battery I should be consuming on a daily basis. And so the story does get a little bit worse first. This one shape on the exterior, so one of the little panels on the soccer ball, is the same shape and it's all carbon. So it's the same molecular structure as benzene. And benzene is absolutely ubiquitous in our society. We don't have modern society without benzene. And just to kind of prove that to you, just glance around whatever room you're in and imagine everything that's plastic going away, because plastics have at their base the benzene ring. There's a lot of medications that are their foundational molecule is the benzene ring, including aspirin, a lot of detergents. So we don't have modern society without the benzene ring. But the benzene ring, when it's on its own, is known to be toxic and known to be carcinogenic. So they actually assumed that this molecule, this ESS60 molecule, would be toxic, and they put it in a toxicity study. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects, in this case it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So that's the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, and that's peer-reviewed published research. I'm very proud to share that my lab provided the material, and my lab is mentioned in that original study. So you can imagine, like leading up to that study, my business partner Robert and I were, I like to call us happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists. And then this study comes out and that changes our trajectory. And it still took us a while. We really didn't want to get into the supplement space, but it certainly changed our trajectory so that we would ultimately end up in the supplement space. And, now I'm a longevity expert. I've written a book. The book is Live Longer and Better. I have a podcast called Live Beyond the Norms. And I did a longevity summit that I'm actually relaunching in August, where I interviewed 55 experts in longevity, including some amazing people in the longevity and health space. Now I wake up and I share the story and expand my knowledge on longevity, and then turn around and share that knowledge with as many people as I can.
Okay, that's amazing. So we're talking about a molecule called carbon 60. Is that correct?
So the way we think about it, right, because you heard me say ESS60, the way we think about it is carbon 60 is for industrial applications. And there's
Okay.
peer-reviewed published research that proves if it's improperly processed, it's harmful. ESS60 is C60 or carbon 60 that has been processed for people and pets. And there's a couple reasons, and if you want to get into it, we can talk about why did we create this demarcation. But the long and short is that we wanted to make sure our consumers would be safe. We wanted to make sure that our consumers would have the highest quality product. And so we trademarked ESS60, which stands for Elemental Safe Spheres and 60 carbon atoms.
Okay, so this is in the form of a supplement that we have to consume this molecule. What does it do to create this longevity effect? What does it do to our bodies?
If you'll indulge me, I'll walk through this process because it's a fascinating journey, and I have covered it all in my Live Longer and Better book. So that study came out in mid 2012. In mid 2013, we started getting phone calls from this crazy, wacky group of people called biohackers. And I can say that now affectionately because I am a biohacker. And they were saying, hey, Chris, how much of this ESS60 molecules dissolved in olive oil should I be taking? And what my business partner and I were hearing is, hey, Chris, that stuff that you sell to research institutions around the world to put into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, how much of that stuff should I consume? And my business partner and I were kind of like, we think you should consume zero because we put it in inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. We added not for human consumption to our labeling in mid 2013. Now, let's be clear. The literature, the science behind it was all very clear. It was very safe. In fact, you had this 90% extension of life, but we were just conservative, ultra conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists, and we just weren't comfortable at that time. Now, the story gets a little crazier because between really 2013 and 2018, we would get about 2 to 3 phone calls per week. And they were the craziest phone calls. They would sound like this. Hey, Chris, I'm taking your product. My knee pain is gone. And we were like, wait a minute, you mean the knee pain of your rat? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. And they're like, yeah. Hey, if my rat weighs 275 pounds and does hit training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, how much should my rat be taking? and and so we kind of know what's going on. We're getting these amazing testimonials, again, about 2 to 3 calls a week. And then my business partner and I are getting together every quarter to go like, hey, do we want to get into this industry? And you're in the space, so you understand that it's a fair statement and maybe even an extremely generous statement to say that the supplement industry is challenged, right? Like you hear of a new supplement, if you're like me and you're like, great, I want to try, I don't know, whatever, NMN. And then you're like, but man, how am I going to find a good one? What's the process to finding a good one? Because the one thing I'm pretty certain of is there's probably lots of bad ones that are out there, right? And that's what you kind of think about every supplement as you hear about it. At least that's what I think about it. So every quarter we're getting together, hey, do we want to get into this industry? The answer was no, because we're conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists. We were happy just selling to research institutions around the world. I actually found a research paper in this time frame that said that 50% of the supplements that were on the market did not have in them what they said they had in them. Again, evidence that it's a challenged industry, evidence that we really didn't want to get in this industry. And then finally in 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following started sharing all the benefits he was getting taking the product on a daily basis. And our phone went from ringing 2 to 3 times a week to 10 times a day. So now it's a bigger opportunity than we realized. My business partner and I look back to that research paper where 50% of the supplements don't have in them what they say they have in them. And we thought, this is going to happen in this space, right? In this carbon 60 and this C60 space. We are in a very unique position. We're the oldest and longest manufacturers and distributors of this molecule on the planet, been manufacturing it since 1991. We're in a very unique position to put out a high quality product that at least would be on the positive side of the 50% of the supplements don't have in them what they say they have in them. At least ours would be on the positive side. So we decided to get into the industry. And here in this, we asked ourselves two kind of pivotal questions before we brought the product to market. The first question is, are we comfortable selling it, right? It's a moral question. The answer is I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our team at the office takes it. By the way, that's not a requirement to work at our office. You don't have to take the product. They just have access to the research and they have access to the testimonials. And so everybody on our team takes it. The next here in the United States is we've got the FDA and the FTC, and you've got to cross the T's and dot the I's. So we're doing that, and we brought the product to market. My first goal as the chief scientist of MyVitalC was to figure out first, hey, is this 90% extension of life a big deal, right? And it turns out, as you might guess, it is a big deal. It is the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history. The next best way to live longer is called calorie restriction. If you reduce your calorie consumption by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. This is well documented in many animal models, and they haven't done the specific tests in humans, right? Because this is long-term. Extending life tests don't happen in humans in reality, but those studies are done in so many animal models that it's basically guaranteed to happen in humans. Now, I call that particular diet the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. Nobody really signs up for that particular diet, even if you hand out a sweater, because they're going to be cold if they're, getting 30% less calories than they're supposed to. So it's a big deal, 90% extension of life. The next piece was, how is this actually working, which is getting to your question finally. I looked at this from the first perspective of our most consistent testimonial. So our most consistent testimonial is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And if you just improve sleep, I am 100% confident. I know very little bit about your coaching program, but sleep is involved in your coaching program. Right?
Literally the number one foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So because it's that important. And we know that good sleep is good for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And I thought, great, if we're just improving sleep, that will explain all these amazing testimonials we're getting from customers who are taking the product. And then my next thought process was, hey, well, how potentially are we extending life? How does the medical community tend to think about longevity? And the answer is not all the time, but most of the time they think of it as an oxidation and an inflammation process. There's even a word called inflammaging because of how detrimental inflammation is to the body and how it ages us. And I'm going to talk about those two. In terms of antioxidant, there's an ad hoc study on the web that shows us to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. There's peer-reviewed published research that shows us to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So we're in Texas. I get to say we put a big old checkbox right there on antioxidant. The next is inflammation. I don't know about in Ireland and where your audience maybe tends to be, but here in the United States, the FDA equates conversations about inflammation to the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of aging. That's like arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancer. And so if I were to say, hey, we help address chronic inflammation, what the FDA hears is me claiming that we cure cancer and Alzheimer's and arthritis, and we are not claiming that. There is so much research that would need to be done to even go down that path. So we have to be careful with inflammation. What the FDA does allow us to say is that we address exercise-induced inflammation, right? So we've all had a tough workout, maybe just walked farther than we normally do. We woke up and felt that inflammation in our body. We can absolutely say that our product addresses that type of inflammation. So we have another big old checkbox, with the FDA caveat on anti-inflammatory. I've been talking a long time, so in case you've got some burning questions.
No, I definitely think so, because one of my questions would have been, okay, so if we're talking longevity, are we just talking about living longer or living better? Because there's a huge difference. And obviously, if you are talking about antioxidant properties and we're talking about anti-inflammation, then that would lead me to believe, then yes, we're talking about living longer with better quality.
Well, it's kind of funny because when you start talking about longevity, the conversations can be a little bit weird. So as I share this study, right? So these rats live 90% longer. I actually tend to get kind of two responses. One, kind of humorously, if they're from New York City, they're like, why would we want rats to live longer? Chris, you're an evil person. We need to bury this research. This is not our focus. The second is a lot of people are like, why would I want to live longer? And when I first started getting that response, I was surprised because in my head, I've always wanted to live. My target age at this point is 125. I am extremely hopeful that it gets extended well beyond that. And I think there's good cause to believe that. So I didn't understand it at first, but then I realized what people are hearing when you say, do you want to live longer? What they're actually hearing is, would you like to live longer in some sort of state of infirmment, right? Of debilitation. Right now, I think the stats are about 20 years of our life is in some sort of physical decay. And I think most people are like, I just wouldn't. When I was recording my longevity summit, I forget which speaker it was, but they were talking about their uncle who was like, the doctor was advising him, hey, if you keep smoking and drinking like this, you're going to lose like 10% of your life. And he was like, well, is it going to be the last 10%? Because I hear that the last 10% is not that good anyway. So I'll keep doing what I'm doing and not have to struggle through that. So when you change the question, and I think this goes to the heart of what you're saying, when you change the question to, Kate, if you had the same mental capacity that you have today and you had the same physical capacity that you have today, would you then be interested in living a lot longer? And that's where not everyone, like some people need to evaluate their life and what they do, but that's where almost everyone will change their hands. In fact, I was in an interview with longevity doctors. They're actually plastic surgeons earlier this week. And they were talking about being at a conference and, hey, who wants to live longer? Who wants to live to 150? Like one or two hands went up and they did the same thing. If you had the same mental capacity and the same physical capacity, would you want to live to 150? And then everyone raises their hand. So we have this challenge separating living longer from living in some sort of state of infirmment. And I think that's something that, hopefully we're going to be changing and hopefully my product is addressing.
I presume that when you're talking about your product, it's not like a magic pill that fixes everything. Like, I would presume that lifestyle plays a huge part in this, and this is to supplement your already healthy lifestyle. Am I correct?
100%. Like, this is not going to take care of a diet that's gone wrong. This is not going to take care of, a disaster of sleep. Although, like, if you continue to just not get the sleep that you need, right? You need about 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep opportunity every night. If you're not going to commit to that, in fact, I'll share this. This is kind of cool. When I recorded my summit, again, I interviewed 55 experts in longevity. One of the things I asked every single one of them was, give me 2 to 3 habits, protocols, mindsets. Let's call them shortcuts because everybody likes shortcuts to longevity and a long health span that you would share. And so they could just freestyle. It wasn't, pick or choose. It wasn't multiple choice, but they could just, it was open up. I'm not going to get the numbers exactly right, but I'm going to get the sentiment right. So about 30% mentioned sleep, about 49% mentioned exercise, 49% mentioned nutrition, and then right in the same range as the ones that mentioned sleep mentioned mindset. And my first thought is, like we've already talked about, sleep being a pillar of health. I was like, hey, I think these experts got it wrong. Like they're not emphasizing sleep enough. And actually, mindset was a little bit above sleep. And then, these are things that you mull over for a couple of days. And then I was like, wait a minute, they did get it wrong. Because mindset is so important. If you know you need to get your 7 to 9 hours of sleep opportunity every night, but you don't have the mindset to put down your phone, you don't have the mindset to get a dark room, to have the AC a little bit colder, to not eat right before you go to sleep. You don't have that mindset. It's never going to happen. If you know you need to exercise, maybe a little more intensely, more kind of resistance training, and you don't have the mindset to do it. Maybe you need to be walking an extra, 5,000 steps a day, and you don't have the mindset to do it. It's never going to happen. Maybe you need to change your diet, but if you don't have the right mindset, it's never going to happen. I think mindset is the most important thing when it comes to it. So you're exactly right. This isn't some sort of magic pill.
Yeah. And I think as well with our mindset, I think you've made such a good point there that a lot of us know, we know that we need to sleep more. We know that we need to drink more water. We need to exercise, that, we know we should have protein, fiber, healthy fats. A lot of us know all of this, or that information is very easily available to us if we're unsure. And I think mindset, what I've discovered is when it comes to habit formation and creating the habits that you need to be healthy, to be happy as well, it really comes down to your values. And you really, I think a lot of us are so busy that we don't take the time to actually sit down and think about, do you value health? What are your values in life? Because if you actually identify your core values, then it doesn't become about motivation or forcing yourself to go out for that run or that walk, or forcing yourself to put vegetables on your plate or whatever it is. It becomes, I do this because I want to be healthy. Health, being one of my values, is so, so important. And I think if we all just took a step back and established that, then it's easier to put all those things in place.
What I'm hearing is that you're a really good coach because you're actually focusing on core values that are going to really help people.
I just wanted to interrupt the podcast for a moment to talk to you a little bit about Kate Hamilton Health online coaching. So we have 2 coaching options available. We have our elite coaching and we have our group coaching service. Our elite coaching service is bespoke, individualized coaching, which will help you to finally break free from diet culture with one-to-one anytime support from your coach and with access to a safe, supportive community. This is a higher ticket coaching option and the coaching is by application only. If you go to my website, katehamiltonhealth.com, you will be able to apply for elite coaching through there, and we will be in touch to organize a call and to get you up and running. In relation to our group coaching starts on the first Monday of every month. When it's full each month, we do close the doors. With the group coaching is about building the habits, body and energy of the healthiest version of yourself and finally make it stick. We include personalized calories and portions, food lists, recipes, meal plan ideas, step goals, home or gym-based workouts, depending on what you want, changed every 8 weeks. Mindset work, app access. So that's the Kate Hamilton Health app, which will be your hub for everything. Weekly yoga classes, WhatsApp group community, weekly group Q&A with myself, fun challenges, daily habits form, weekly self-check-in, fortnightly check-ins with your coach, a library full of lifestyle guides, a library full of lessons, seminars, and all of this is updated regularly. We have weekly group Zoom calls with myself and the team, regular guest seminars where we get experts on to talk more to you about different topics that we need experts on for. And then we have in-person events twice a year that you will get at a major discount as being a member of the Kate Hamilton Health community. So, as I said, this starts the first Monday of every month. If you go to my website, katehamiltonhealth.com, you will see when the next group coaching intake is starting for you. So we close the doors as soon as that intake is full, or the Monday before the group coaching starts. So usually that last Monday of the previous month. So if you head over to katehamiltonhealth.com, all of that information that I've talked through is on the website. You'll be able to book your spot for the next intake there. And I will chat to you all then.
So I have a friend, his name is Patrick Wanis. He's a human behavior expert, and I kind of describe him as the best therapist that I can possibly imagine, because in 90 minutes, if we think about big T's, little T's of trauma, right? He actually goes in, and if you think about those as an onion, he actually gets rid of the one that you're ready to deal with in one session. So this is pretty fantastic. He has what's called the law of deservedness. And that law of deservedness says you have exactly what you are supposed to have, like what you truly believe you're supposed to have, and nothing more and nothing less. And if you get more, then you'll actually sabotage it, or at a very minimum, not enjoy it. So if you think about somebody who's coming to you from a health perspective, right? And this is true of business coaches, it's true of relationship coaches, it's true. People are coming to you at their law of deservedness, at their set point. First thing you do is like get rid of carbs, or eat less carbs, and already you're improving them and you're taking them above their set point. So now you actually have to be working on changing the set point. That's got to be your focus, and it sounds like you do a good job of doing that, because that is, if you don't change that set point will draw them back right into bad eating habits, into bad sleeping habits, into bad exercise habits. Also, in this interview that I did earlier this week, one of the doctors spoke about their mom, who they just couldn't get to talk. They would have conversations with her and she just wouldn't shift over to becoming healthy or losing some weight. When it finally resonated with her that she wasn't going to have enough time with her grandkids if she didn't get healthy, then she got healthy. When she figured out the value that was driving her, that's what she got healthy. So it sounds like your clients are lucky.
Oh, thank you very much. And yeah, I think very much as well, like that, you're saying that set point as well. It's doing it at a very step by step, because what happens is when we're all busy and we're all stressed as it is, and you throw too much in on top of yourself and you try and change everything at once, it becomes overwhelming. It becomes counterproductive, because obviously stress being another, I suppose it would be the opposite to what we're trying to do when we're talking about longevity. Stress is a huge issue in causing a lot of issues for a lot of people. Before we go down the route of stress, I just wanted to ask you about menopause, because I know we spoke a little bit just before we went on air about menopause and how this molecule can actually help with the symptoms. Because although we talk about values, I work with a lot of women who are very, very clear on what they value, but then their hormones start acting up. And then everything gets so much harder, because it becomes not just a mindset thing, it is physiological as well.
So I'm about to be a speaker on a menopause summit. And part of what drives that is in my podcast, I think I've done at least 5 interviews on menopause. I certainly didn't anticipate to have so much awareness and expertise in the space. And a couple of things that resonated with me as I'm putting together my talking points are the dramatic impact that oxidative stress has on menopause and really menopause symptoms, the dramatic impact that inflammation has on menopause and menopause symptoms. And then, of course, the hormonal adjustments are the dramatic piece as well. All of these things are actually mitigated and can be controlled within the mitochondria. So you start looking at stressed mitochondria being the source of extra inflammation, of oxidation, and some of the hormonal changes, because once you actually in mitochondria produce pregnenolone, and that is a core molecule for all of the sex hormones. So these are really pivotal key things that are happening at the mitochondrial level. And so now is the time we'll get into what I call the BOSS theory. So buffering oxidative stress system is our current theory about this ESS60 molecule. We know from peer-reviewed published research that this molecule gets into the mitochondria. We also know from way back in the 90s when it was discovered that it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of this cage. And that sets a unique platform that I'll describe this way. So, brief history, like you probably know, a lot of your audience will know, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell. There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body, except for blood cells, which have 0, and brain and neuron cells, which have 2 million. That's how much energy our nervous system uses relative to the rest of our systems. Pretty amazing. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell. It produces ATP, which is the energy source for the cells. And like every energy source that we're familiar with, there are negative byproducts. In the case of your car going down the road, you have exhaust. In the case of a power plant, you have smoke coming out of the smokestack. In mitochondria, it produces reactive oxygen species. These are positively and negatively charged particles that run around doing what I call I picture them like bumper cars, rusting everything they bump into, causing oxidative stress and oxidative damage. And that in turn actually causes inflammation. What we believe happens in a typical mitochondria, you actually have 2 resident antioxidants called glutathione and melatonin. So the glutathione and melatonin typically handle those reactive oxygen species so that they don't run around and do all the damage. But when your mitochondria is stressed, that's when it starts producing extra reactive oxygen species, and those go off and do the damage. And that's where we believe the ESS60 molecule comes in, holds on to those extra reactive oxygen species so they can't do any damage. And then when that mitochondria can replenish the glutathione and the melatonin, they can then manage those reactive oxygen species appropriately. That's why we say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss. Now, I've got a fun analogy, and hopefully it lands well for you over there in Ireland. Like all good biological analogies, ours starts with Mardi Gras. So it's the end of Mardi Gras, right? A big celebration at the end of Lent. And it's in Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and it's known for being super crazy. You have these drunk reactive oxygen species running around on Bourbon Street. And actually, I'll use a phrase that has ties to Ireland, and you can tell me if it's offensive or not, actually, because somebody was like, hey, that might be offensive. So you'll get to share this with me.
Irish don't get offended easy, so go
Okay,
for it.
good. You have these drunk reactive oxygen species running around Bourbon Street, doing oxidative stress, doing oxidative damage. And you have the New Orleans Police Department, the glutathione and melatonin, coming in, handcuffing themselves to these reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But what does the New Orleans Police Department do when they're overwhelmed, when they're stressed? They take these reactive oxygen species and they put them in a paddy wagon. They attach them to the exterior of this ESS60 molecule so they can't do any damage. And then when they can replenish the glutathione and replenish the melatonin, they come in and handcuff themselves to these reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And again, that's why we say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss of buffering oxidative stress system.
That makes sense. How does that relate to menopause?
Okay, so when you have these reactive oxygen species running around and actually doing the oxidative stress and oxidative damage that they do, that increases inflammation in your body, right? So inflammation is not all bad. And I have another analogy that's kind of cool, but the reality is if you cut yourself, you get inflamed around the cut, right? If you damage your muscles, some of that inflammation is actually good for you because that's your body's process for healing. So if your mitochondria are stressed and they're producing extra reactive oxygen species, that is a signaling molecule to cause inflammation. And in our case, we're holding on to it so that it doesn't cause inflammation. Because if it's not acute inflammation, then it's problematic inflammation. So you reduce oxidative stress, you reduce inflammation by managing these reactive oxygen species. You actually support the mitochondria in its production of pregnenolone, that core hormone associated with all of the sex hormones, and then everything is better. And I can share, I really wouldn't even have gone down this path unless my wife's experience. So my wife experienced early onset menopause. She, was going through it. It was all of the challenges, we'll say, the menopause challenges. So heat, poor sleep, moody. Those are the ones I saw.
And there was probably a lot more going on inside as well.
Exactly. This was actually really about the time I was bringing this product to market. And you know how your spouse is, like they may not believe you enough, and sometimes takes them a while to convince them to try something. So I finally convinced her to try it, and it had a dramatic impact on her menopause symptoms. And so what we ended up doing, we take our standard product and we put a label of menopause because it's just the standard product that's doing it. We don't actually have to reformulate it. And so that is available on our website.
That's amazing. So, did she experience like a fairly immediate relief from symptoms, or did this build over time?
For her, I think it was a little bit of both, but there was some immediate impact. And then this is a product I personally, I mean, here's my routine. We have an olive oil version. So what our product is a high quality extra virgin olive oil with as much of this ESS60 molecule as we can get to dissolve in it. We also sell it in an avocado oil and in an MCT oil. My routine is in my coffee. I do kind of a bulletproof coffee kind of thing. I don't like it. So bulletproof coffee, typically that was created by Dave Asprey. Typically it's a high quality coffee, a chunk of ghee, right? Purified butter, and then MCT. I don't want the calories from that ghee. I don't actually like the flavor that much. So I do put MCT in my coffee, and I put about a teaspoon and a half of our MCT product in my coffee. While that's blending, I take a teaspoon and a half of our olive oil product. So I take the product every day. She takes the product every day. I'll share this, right? Because the fundamental part of the question is how quickly are people reporting some improvements? And I'll show you, this is kind of across the board, not specifically to menopause, but
Yep.
certainly would have applications. I've got one video of a lady, she's out of the UK. I sent her some product. She took it in the morning and then created a video that same day, so that evening. And what she shared was, I love the product. I did not finish my cup of coffee today. And if you're a coffee drinker and, like put in a video, hey, I didn't finish my cup of coffee today, that's same day impact on how she's feeling. And remember, I say our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. I actually have a longer testimonial, and I'll share this one because it's super interesting. Gwen is our largest distributor here in Houston, and she originally ordered the product for her dog. She didn't have any intent to take it. She started giving it to her dog. She noticed such a profound difference in her dog that she was like, oh, I probably should be taking this, right? And I love to kind of pause there at some point for a little bit, because if you're hearing about this for the first time, your scam radar should be going off, right? It's an amazing molecule. It's got an amazing story, but is this placebo? Like, those are things that should be going through your mind, because those are things that went through my mind. And one thing that's very true is there is no placebo effect with pets, right? Ironically, they're not smart enough to know that they got the little dropper of oil with ESS60 and they should have more energy that day. So she noticed her dog with more energy, his little elderly dog, elderly Shih Tzu, actually. She noticed more energy and was like, I need to be taking this. So she started taking it. And I recorded a video with her at about the 3-month mark. And she said, well, actually, I think it was much later, but she said, Chris, if you had asked me at the 3-month mark if I had noticed anything, my knee-jerk reaction would have been, no, I haven't really noticed anything. But then I kind of slowed down and I took stock of my life. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm getting more work done. I'm working later into the evening. I'm waking up earlier. I was never a morning person. And then arguably the worst testimonial about a supplement ever, I cleaned my garage, right? Most of us get a little bit more sleep or a little bit less sleep every night, right? Like maybe it's an extra hour, maybe it's an hour short, weekends even shorter. And so to be able to assess your sleep can be challenging, and to take the product and assess yours. I'll give this other example. This lady in the office right next to ours, I gave her a couple of bottles of our product because she's going through some oncology treatment and I felt that it would be beneficial. Went back to her office like 10 days later. And I was like, hey, have you noticed anything? She was kind of, this happens from time to time. She was kind of depressed because she was like, Chris, I haven't really noticed it. She felt bad for me because she was telling me that she hadn't really noticed anything. And I'm like, I didn't invent this, right? Like, I don't have any personal skin in the game. I'm excited to get every single testimonial, positive or negative. But I did ask her, hey, so how's your sleep been? And her eyes got wide like Bambi, right? And she was like, oh my God, I've been waking up at 5:30 every morning. She was formerly in the military. That's the time she's supposed to wake up. So she didn't equate the fact that she was waking up on time with the fact that she was taking the product. So it can be pretty subtle. I don't.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered your kind of overriding question.
Yeah, but I think stuff that is genuine, like changes that are to keep, if you like, tend to be gradual. I'm always very skeptical of, sudden amazing changes. It's like, why? Whereas I think when it's gradual, you're like, okay, yeah, okay, this seems a little bit, yeah, okay, my body is accepting this, and it's doing good for my body over time for sure.
Yep.
As well, interesting that you sell it as like an olive oil, or you said an avocado oil. So not only that, then you're also encouraging people, I presume, to get their healthy fats in as well.
Yes, absolutely. Healthy fats are
Yeah.
very good. So in that original study, I'll just throw this out there. In that original study, one group of rats got water. That was a control group. One group of rats got olive oil. That was a semi-control group. And then the other
Yeah.
got olive oil with the ESS60 molecule. The ones given olive oil lived 30% longer. So I love what Dr. Gundry says. Dr. Gundry, he's in the health space and has written so many books, and I've had the opportunity to interview him a couple times. He says that the purpose of food is to get more olive oil in your mouth, right? Obviously, he's being facetious. I actually had somebody comment on a video. That's not the purpose of food. It's like, that's not his point. That's not his point. His point is eat more olive oil because it is such a healthy oil. You're 100% right. Like, consume this oil. And for those, by the way, for those people who don't consume much oil, people ask, hey, what are the potential negative side effects? If you don't consume much oil, we're asking you to consume a teaspoon, which actually isn't that much. But if your system isn't used to it, you can get a little bit of loose stool for a day or two because you're actually
Mm.
adding this healthy fat to your diet, and that can have that impact.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of women, that listen to this podcast as well, we kind of come from this diet culture society where there's a lot of clients I work with that are afraid to eat healthy fats like nuts, seeds, avocado, because they've been told by slimming clubs that fat makes you fat. So there's been, decades of that. And thankfully we are unlearning this, empowering ourselves. And I do everything I can to make sure that all my ladies are eating enough healthy fats, because it's so, so important. Brain health, for inflammation, for hormone health. And interesting though, you're talking about olive oil, because I actually, like, as you were talking, I made notes of things, that I kind of wanted to circle back to in relation to longevity. When we think about the blue zones, the areas in the world where people are living longest, what kind of diet are they eating? They're
Yeah.
eating a Mediterranean style diet, isn't it? Which is high in olive oil.
Absolutely. I did a presentation on the blue zones, and actually part of my follow-up for the summit. And you're absolutely right. Olive oil is a key thing, and healthy fats. And I can share with you that I've changed my diet in like this is kind of just to like, what else does Chris do? I've changed my diet because, well, really there's a lot of literature out there saying you need to be eating a lot more protein, especially as you get over the age of 35, which was long ago for me. You've got to be eating enough protein so that you can build muscle. You want to fight off sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting that tends to occur with age. So you do need to be getting protein. And my focus in my diet is protein and then other stuff, right? Like protein, whatever the other stuff is. And honestly, I'm doing intermittent fasting, and I'm about to start changing off of that because it's hard for me to get the amount of protein that I want. So I'm actually adding a shake in the morning, a protein shake, because my target is 1 gram of protein per lean pound of body mass. My lean body mass is about 124 pounds right now. And so I'm supposed to get 124 grams of protein with intermittent fasting, which I absolutely love. Like, we could do a whole show on intermittent fasting and the value of intermittent fasting, in my opinion. But to try and get that 124 grams of protein in 2 meals is really tough. So I've actually had to add it. And I can share this. So my experience with protein is very recently, probably in the last 9 months, maybe a year, I've added significantly higher amounts of protein. Really haven't changed out my workout routine. And I've added about 5 pounds of muscle. So I turn 56 next month. And that's the age where you're not supposed to be adding muscle, right? This is that, all of these aging curves kind of look like this, like NMN goes down, everything goes down, including muscle mass. And so I'm doing things that you're not supposed to be doing. And I believe that I love my product, but it's not the reason that I'm adding muscle mass. Like, I don't have any misgivings about that. So yeah, there's a lot of value, I think, in focusing on protein and then filling in the gaps with, potentially fats, depending on where your protein's coming from, and then, getting some fiber as much as you can behind it. But if you're doing intermittent fasting, it can be tough.
Yeah, definitely. And intermittent fasting, which, as you said, could be a whole other episode. Quite often, I will get clients looking, for my opinions on it in relation to weight loss. And I promote, let's just get 3 decent meals a day and let's
Mm.
not, because quite often when people want to intermittent fast for weight loss reasons, they want to skip breakfast and they want to snack all evening. And for me, I'm always like, don't let yourself get so hungry that you can't control your cravings is
Mm.
is how I would approach my coaching. So I tend not to kind of promote intermittent fasting, not because I don't think it has health benefits, but just lifestyle benefits for a busy mom. It can be counterproductive. And one of those reasons is what you've said in relation to protein as well, because protein is so important. And I think it's such a myth, isn't it, that we can't gain muscle mass over a certain age. We hear these statistics for women over the age of 30, we're losing 3 to 8% muscle mass per decade over the
Yeah.
age of 30.
Doesn't
So
have
I
to be
think,
that way.
yeah, and people think, oh my God, like they kind of, there's no point, it's too late. It's like, it's never too late.
No, no. I'm going to add a little kind of different perspective. So I appreciate what you're saying in terms of intermittent fasting. Hey, one, don't let your hunger get to the point that you can't control your cravings, right? So this does go back to set point, and you're doing, I think, really smart things. If that's the advice, hey, we've got to manage it. I've found when I'm trying to diet, so I think I'm like a lot of people, I've always had 5 pounds that I would like to get rid of, right? And so you try different diets for my whole life. And one of the things that I noticed about diets is hunger is the enemy in most diets, right? If you're counting calories, if you're whatever it is you're doing, I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. God, when do I get to eat next? And when it comes to intermittent fasting, for at least for me, there's a mindset shift, which is hunger is the goal of intermittent fasting, right? You're looking for some hunger to kind of trigger in autophagy so you can, get rid of senescent cells. And so when I get hungry, so I typically, my first meal is at 3 p.m. in the day. When I get to that point, I'm hungry, right? Probably for about an hour, maybe two, depending on the day. But when I'm hungry, my mindset's very different because I'm like, yes, like that's the goal. I'm supposed to be hungry. And so maybe that can speak to some of your clients, right? Like it sounds like you're already assessing kind of where they are mentally and from a willpower perspective and dealing with that, which is the right perspective.
Yeah, and I think it very much depends on the person, the lifestyle, the goals, and the knowledge behind it. And I think with intermittent fasting, because talking nothing about the science behind it, just if it's misunderstood, it can be really counterproductive towards healthy eating habits and can promote a little bit of disordered eating in some people. So I think anyone who's listening who does want to go down the route of intermittent fasting, do your research, learn what it is actually doing in your body, which can be some wonderful things. Just learn what it's doing and go about it for the right reasons. And I think that comes back to your values and your why, and being really, really clear on that is just so important.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, look, your products, what is the name of your products?
So it's MyVitalC is the brand. And then we have an olive oil version, an avocado version, an MCT version. And so, yeah, MyVitalC is the brand. And I actually made a special link for your audience, right? There is a $15 off coupon if anybody's interested in trying the product. It's on that link. So you got to go there to get it. So myvitalc.com/KHH. I'm going to give you a couple pieces of advice when you land on that page. The first is when a lot of people will say, hey, which one should I try? Olive oil, avocado oil, or MCT? We always say olive oil for two main reasons. The first is we're a science-based organization, and all the research is on the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. So that's the number one reason. Number two, you actually get a higher concentration of the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. You get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, 0.6 in avocado oil, and 0.3 in MCT oil. So we always recommend olive oil. We have a 25% discount if you go on subscription. Even if you just want to try the product once, please take advantage of that discount. Our customer service team has 1,000 5-star reviews. They're not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. They're there to help you, and they do an absolutely amazing job. And then I'll add one more thing. I have a charity piece to the book. So the book, Live Longer and Better, is available on Amazon for $20. You can find it on our website. It's not on that landing page. So you go to myvitalc.com/KHH, pick up that coupon code, go to the menu structure, you'll find the book. It's also $20 on our website. And I have a charity piece, which I'm really proud of. For $10 extra, I'll sign the book for you. And that full $10 goes to Operation Underground Railroad. There was a movie called The Sound of Freedom. I don't know if you guys got it over there. It's about childhood sex trafficking, obviously something we need to get obliterate from our planet as soon as possible. Operation Underground Railroad is focused on that. It's amazing. It's an amazing movie about a horrific subject. So 100% of that signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad.
That's amazing. Do you deliver to Ireland and the UK?
We do. We can ship into there. We don't really have any distributors in there. And what we tend to do is subsidize the shipping so it's not too crazy getting it over there. Yeah. And then we also recommend, hey, like order 3 bottles at a time so that you can.
Yeah, so it takes a while. Yeah. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing and the research. And any advice I give, like I said at the start, I'm always that practical, what we do every day kind of gal, but I always like it to be science-based.
Yes, exactly. Kate, it was so great connecting with you. Thank you. Some really great questions. And it sounds like you're doing amazing stuff with your clients. You have some lucky clients.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. And I will talk to you soon.
Take care, Kate.
Thank you. Bye. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I would just ask for one thing from you. If at all possible, could you make sure that you subscribe to the podcast? It really does make such a difference. If there's a particular episode that you've enjoyed, please do share it in your WhatsApp groups, share it on your stories, tag myself and the guest in your stories. All of these things really do help to grow the podcast. And obviously, if there's anything you'd like to reflect on, please do leave a comment. It would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next one.